Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Third Unitarian Church. We're so glad you could be with us here this morning to celebrate life, grieve our sufferings, and connect with one another. We hope you find Third Unitarian Church to be a place that enriches your spirit and motivates you to take action to bless the world. We welcome all people in this church, and we welcome your whole person. The membership committee has its last meeting of the year on Tuesday evening at the Matthews. A class for prospective members is being planned, which is always a wonderful way to start the new year. Next Saturday, December 13th at 2 p.m., a memorial service and reception for Mark Merkoven will be held at the Oak Park Arms at Oak Park Avenue and Washington Boulevard in Oak Park. Minister Emeritus Reverend Don Wheat will present the eulogy. Chris Baker is busy taking our TUC history and story in the concourse and making it into a collage. He thinks of it as a holiday present for TUC. He has a second present as well, a photo day at TUC next Sunday. So if you're here next Sunday, Chris is going to try to get you to take a picture with him. Just be warned in case you want to do your hair. He does have a wish list to announce, however. Anyone with a good camera, please help him. Having the skills to use it is not necessary. Also, anyone who has made a Prezi, please get with Chris if you can help on either of those fronts. There are several special services planned for this month. On December 21st, we'll have an intergenerational service with a dramatic presentation of Charlie Brown's Christmas. On December 24th, there will be the first Christmas Eve candlelight service at TUC in several years. At 4 p.m., we'll sing traditional Christmas carols, have a brief reflection, and end in candlelight singing Silent Night. On December 28th, we'll have our annual Kwanzaa service led by Barbara Miner. The Action and Austin group, consisting of members of TUC and Unity Temple, will be volunteering many hours at the food depository during this month. Get involved by talking to Roger Masson or Gail Holmland. Ethnic dining is scheduled for 5 p.m. next Sunday at a Taste of Brazil on South Oak Park Avenue. Next week's forum is about the Trans-Pacific Partnership Treaty. Celeste Larkin, the Public Policy Director of the Chicago Religious Leadership Network, will be speaking. At next week's worship service, Minister Jennifer Nordstrom and Worship Associate Maureen Darcy will convene the service, Immersed in Awe, the Soul in Search of Itself. Whether the experience is individual, in nature, with children, or communal, wonder can lead us into awe. Maureen and Jennifer will explore the kinds of experiences that lead us into awe, and during the service we'll ritually celebrate Hanukkah's triumph of light in the darkness and spirituality over materiality, as the essence of our being is immersed in wonder. Once again, welcome to Third Unitarian Church.
chalice, a symbol of hope, faith, freedom, and love, to connect with Unitarian Universalists in the past, present, and future. A reading from Rosa Parks. I believe we are here on the planet Earth to live, grow up, and do what we can to make this world a better place for all people to enjoy freedom. Another reading from Fannie Lou Hamer. When they asked for those to raise their hand, we'd go down to the courthouse. The next day, I raised mine, had it high up as I could get it. I guess if I'd have any sense, I would have been a little scared. But what was that point of being scared? The only thing they could do to me was kill me. And it seemed like they'd been trying to do that little by little at a time ever since I could remember. So now please rise in either audience spirit and join us in hymn number 34, Gather the Spirit.
Joy
may be seated unless you'd like to join us up on the chancel for the story for all ages.
Good morning. No good morning?
Good morning, Kate.
Thank you. That's for you, you know. So, this month's theme is wonder. Today we're going to talk about the wonder, like, I wonder why things happen or things are like they are. So today's story is called Gautama Finds Out for Himself. He was big on the I wonder why thing. He was a prince, and he lived a long time ago in India. And he lived in this place where, like, it was almost like a little town, almost like they had the palace, and there's this big wall around it, and he had everything he could possibly need within the walls where he lived. And one day when he was young, some wise man came and told his father that something bad was going to happen to his son, Prince Gautama. And something bad was going to happen, he would never be king. And so his father got really scared, and he decided that his son was never going to go out of the walls. And he didn't. He wasn't allowed to go out the palace grounds. And he wasn't allowed to see any sick person, any old person, nothing like that, because his father so badly wanted to protect him. Yes, dear? That's probably the bad thing that happened, he said, that he wasn't allowed outside the palace. So, cutting him off from the world was the bad thing. Well, we'll see what he did about it. So people would come to the palace grounds to sell things from other countries, and so Gautama would learn about China and Arabia and other places because of the people coming to sell things. But he still wasn't allowed to go out, except when he went hunting. Then he was allowed to leave and go hunting. He couldn't go by himself, but at least he got to leave out. Well, one day he was riding around, and they saw a man lying beside a rock, and he was groaning, and he was obviously hurt. He was in pain. And Gautama said, "What is wrong with this man?" "Well, he's sick," said his servant. His servant always went everywhere with him. "Well, why is he sick?" Gautama wanted to know. "Well, can't we do anything for him?" "Well, it is the way of life," said his servant. "The man is only a beggar. Let's forget him." And they went on. Well, Gautama couldn't forget. He rode back to the palace and asked his teachers, because of course the teachers had to come to him since he wasn't allowed to go anywhere. And he asked them, "Why do men become sick?" Well, his teachers, they opened their Bibles and said some prayers, and that was the end of that. So another day, he was out hunting, and Gautama was in a really good mood this day. He was pretty content. But as they rode along, they saw a man who was leaning very heavily on 2 canes. He couldn't walk without help, and his hair was white, and his face was wrinkled, and his hands were shaking a lot. "What is wrong with this man?" Gautama said. "Well, he's old," said his servant. "What does that mean, old?" "Well, it's something that comes to all who live a long time. Their bodies become tired and weak. Don't trouble yourself, Gautama. This man is only a beggar." But Gautama was troubled. He had so many questions, but he knew that nobody was going to answer them. And when he went back home that night and talked to his wife and everything, and he was just so troubled that he went into his own space and didn't want to talk to anybody. Well, the third time this happened, he went out hunting, and he went on this path, and he found this little hut beside the path. He opened the door, and there was a man. He saw him lying, and it looked like he was asleep. "What's wrong with this man?" said Gautama. "Well, the man is dead," said his servant. "Why? What does dead mean?" "I cannot tell you," said his servant. "It is the way of all men. But this man was only a beggar. Do not let yourself be troubled." So Gautama had to go home and still didn't get any answer. Well, there was a big party that same night, that his wife had arranged, and there was dancers and food and all kinds of, fun stuff. And what did he do? He went to his room. He didn't want to be with the party because he was so troubled. He didn't understand. Is there no one who cares when beggars are sick or when they die? Why must people suffer so? Can't people be happier? I don't get it. He decided right then that he had to get out and go into the bigger world. He said to himself, I must learn for myself what it really means to live. And so that night, when it was dark, he snuck out. And he had a wife and he had a child by this time. And he wanted to kiss them goodbye so badly, but he didn't want to wake them up. So he snuck out. And he decided to go get the answers to his questions for himself. Why do people become sick? Why are people old? Why do they die? Why is there suffering? By being hungry, Prince Gautama learned how it felt to be hungry himself. By taking care of the sick and the dying, he learned what it meant to be sick and to die. And by being poor, he learned how it felt to be poor. So this guy who had always slept on this fancy cushion behind guarded walls, he started sleeping on the ground with the animals in the forests. And he started going begging from door to door to eat. And he cooked himself one plain meal a day. Sometimes he lived all alone, and sometimes he lived with other poor men who were also trying to find some answers. And he did this for months and years. And he had walked out in his life. He was going to be king. But he decided he wanted to understand the world more than he wanted to be king. And he never did become king. He learned how to be at peace with himself finally. He learned not to be afraid of dying. And he learned what seemed to be, to him, the true way of life, which was turned out to be living way differently than he had grown up. And this man grew up to be the person that we now call the Buddha. So, legend tells that that is a true story. So that is like somebody really, really wondered why, right? And he did something about it. So there you go. You may return to your seats or go up into the RE space.
I invite you to find yourself in the pews. Find your feet on the floor. Your sit bones pressing evenly into the pews. And begin to attend to your breath. Feel it moving in and out of your nostrils. Let it fill your entire belly. Let go. And come into being here and now. Spirit of life and love, Holy One of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. As we enter this season of waiting, as the days grow shorter and colder, the nights grow longer, and we yearn for the sun to return. Remind us of our faith in a larger love. There is so much pain in these days. Suffering and chaos. People churning in the dark and the muck and the mud. Spirit, remind us of hope. Hope for the light to return. Hope that the oil will light the lamps for longer than we expect. Hope that new life will be born. We are waiting. Waiting in the dark, our own souls churning like compost. Remind us that this churning, this inward turning is what creates the fertilizer for new life. May we go deep, dig up the old stuff, look at it, be honest with ourselves, and keep what serves us, and return the rest to the earth. Let us make good use of this waiting in the dark. And let us remember that the light will return. New life will come. May it be so, and blessed be.
The martyred Archbishop Oscar Romero once said, "This is what we are about. We plant the seeds that one day will grow. We water seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promises." The theme of this month is wonder. In my life experience, I have faced many experiences where I had to wonder about many things. But in recent days, the one thing that I continue to wonder about was how cruel this society can be. We live in a nation where we are taught that the world is colorblind. Everyone is equal in this post-racial society. However, in these past few days, it is clear that we live in a system where people of color are treated differently. A system that makes an unarmed black teenager look like a criminal. The day after the verdict just so happened to be 2 days before Thanksgiving. As I was heading to the interfaith vigil, I was wondering what on earth I should be thankful for. I was starting to lose faith in humanity. As I was walking towards First Unitarian Church, I saw a light towards the end of the corner. It was a large group of people of every age, color, gender identity, and creed. Everyone joining together in order to mourn the loss of justice in this society. As we were heading inside the building, I recognized many familiar faces. Many of them were Unitarians, but I saw a few people that I met during my college years, and some people that I've known since high school. During the service, I was sitting with 3 other people who were around the same age as me. 2 of them belonged to First Unitarian Church, and one of them belonged to Second U. And there was only one hymn book, So all four of us were sharing that book. I noticed some people were taking pictures of us. I was wondering what was so fascinating about all this. Then I looked closer to the group. We were a group of 4 young adults, consisting of a Latino, a black woman, a white man, and a Korean woman. We were sitting together, sharing a book, and singing a song about love and tolerance. After the service, while I was heading home, I started to count my blessings. I am thankful that I am a part of a community that is just as passionate about social justice as I am. A community that is just as passionate about spiritual growth as I am. I realize that it is possible to defeat this racist system. As long as the community remains strong, nothing can defeat us.
Just so moved by that. Every week we have an opportunity to express our values through sharing our resources. Resources are a tangible representation of our energy and our life force in the world. This week we have an opportunity through the offertory to share them with this place. By sharing them with Third Unitarian Church, we say that this place, this church, this community matters to me. It does something for my life. The offering will now be received. Will the ushers please come forward? Rise in either body or spirit and join me in the responsive reading, the red insert in your order of service. I'll read the plain print and you will respond with that in italics. We envision a world where your life and safety is tied to mine. We envision a world where language is used for wholeness and liberation.
Because what we say has power.
We envision a world where your liberation is linked to my liberation.
Because we are interconnected.
We envision a world where voting will be an empowering event.
Because justice depends on it.
We envision a world where war and violence will be considered reprehensible.
Because dehumanizing others dehumanizes me.
We envision a world where creation, ingenuity, discomfort, and compassionate criticism will be welcomed.
Because we need these things to grow.
We envision a world where all are valued, loved, and respected.
Because he unites you, unites me.
We envision a world where all living beings will have access to clean water, to fresh food, to shelter, to beauty, and to love.
Because our bodies, hearts, minds, and souls can have.
We envision a world where fear will be recognized as an emotion and not as an authority.
Because our lives depend on that.
We envision a world where humans think ahead and consider impact on future generations.
Because their lives depend on that.
We envision a world where respect for the earth is as important as respect for oneself and one's community.
We do these things because they matter, because our lives depend on them, because all our lives depend on them.
Will you remain standing in either body or in spirit and join us in sermon hymn number 131, Love Will Guide Us. As always, when speaking about systems and groups, I'll be talking about patterns, and knowing that there are exceptions to patterns does not make those patterns not real. As we venture into this territory together, may we remember that this conversation is not optional in communities of color because people's lives depend on it. In this integrated community, which right now is between 85 and 90% white and 10 to 15% people of color, may we not see it as optional either. May we know that all of our lives and our humanity depends on it. And also let me say that you are my people. I have been so impressed by this community and so proud to be your minister in these last several weeks. The way that you have responded to Ferguson and this national dialogue on racism and white privilege has been thoughtful and anti-racist. I invite you to further dialogue with me, with your families, your parents, and your children, and with each other. May we approach this dialogue with open minds and open hearts, trust one another's good intentions, and listen deeply. The work of anti-racism is not easy, and the road to the beloved community is long. I trust that you are committed to it for the long haul, even when it gets rough, as am I. And I hope that our time together furthers all of our commitment to justice. When I was a girl, my dad told me about being in college at the University of Madison when Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. He remembers the protests on campus and how surprising they were to a young man from small town Illinois. He remembers his roommate borrowing his mattress to take it to a sit-in. He remembers not going to the protests himself. Every time I've witnessed him tell that story, I hear a little shame in his voice. I was young, he says, sheepishly, and I didn't understand what was going on. What is going on? In the 2006 Alfonso Cuarón science fiction dystopia, Children of Men, the world has been afflicted with infertility. When the film opens in the year 2027, no woman has been pregnant in 2 decades, and the world has dissolved into chaos. People have lost all hope. They are violent and despairing. Everywhere the world over, people are at war, and the one remaining government in Britain is brutal, hierarchical, and militarized. Chains, fences, and paramilitary police with machine guns separate the haves from the have-nots, the British from the immigrants and the refugees. In the midst of this, the main character is introduced to a miraculously pregnant woman, a refugee, a black woman, a poor woman, and an immigrant named Key. She is the first woman to be pregnant in over 2 decades. And his immigrant rights activist ex-wife introduces her to him and asks him to help her find safety. During their journey together through violence and through threat after threat to all of their lives, Key gives birth. A variety of groups try to kidnap her and the child for profit or for their own uses. In the midst of an ambush where government forces and rebels are shooting at one another and the rattle of machine guns and bombs going off are all around, the newborn baby starts to cry. And everything stops. The baby wails, and the soldiers freeze. It goes silent, and everyone turns to look at the miracle. A newborn child, new life. What's going on? Over the summer, I was staying at a friend's house in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I came downstairs to a TV that no one had been watching. So I came downstairs to the news without any context of what was happening on the television, and I saw a large black man talking to white police officers in an urban setting. He was saying, "Every time you see me, you want to mess with me. I'm tired of it. It stops today. I'm minding my business, officer. I'm minding my business. Please, just leave me alone. I told you the last time, please just leave me alone. Please." Then one of the officers reaches toward the man who says, "Please don't touch me." At this point, 2 officers begin to grab his arms, and he puts his hands in the air and says, "Please do not touch me." Then one of the officers jumps on his back and puts him in a chokehold. While the officer is on his back with him in a chokehold, he pushes the man to the ground, and you can hear the men say, I can't breathe. 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 What's going on? Black people have long known that they are in danger of police violence. White violence, often exacted through the police, has been used to control black communities since slavery ended. This is not a new phenomenon. There is, however, new national attention being paid to it right now. In the last 6 months, there have been 6 high-profile national cases of unarmed black males ages 12 to 43 being killed by white police officers. Eric Garner in Staten Island was 43, and he was killed with a chokehold. The rest of the men, 18-year-old Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, 22-year-old John Crawford in Beaver Creek, Ohio, 12-year-old Tamir Rice in Cleveland, and 34-year-old Romaine Brisbane in Phoenix, Arizona, were all shot. John Crawford and Tamir Rice both had toy guns when they were shot and killed in Ohio, which is an open carry state. John Crawford, the 22-year-old, was in a Walmart, and the toy gun was something he had just picked up off the shelf. Tamir Rice, the 12-year-old, was in a park, playing. There's also Darian Hunt, who is a 22-year-old black male who was shot and killed by police in September in Utah because he had a sword, a toy sword, that he used for cosplay. Utah is also an open carry state. In all of the cases except for Eric Garner's, the police involved claimed they were afraid for their lives. With Garner, Officer Pantalejo, the man who put him in a chokehold, said he was trying to arrest Garner and possibly trying to stop him from biting an officer. In every other case, the black victim was shot, usually within seconds, because the white officer claimed to be afraid for his life. A USA Today analysis of the FBI statistics on police homicides estimates that a white police officer kills a black victim on average 96 times per year. In the narrative claiming that the police officers in these cases did the right thing, made the right decision, the argument is that they were genuinely afraid for their lives, and that it is better for them to have acted to defend themselves and stay alive than to have not acted and possibly been killed. I grant that it was possible that these officers, in a moment of panic, were genuinely afraid of a 12-year-old boy, a toy sword, and a young man who had picked something up off the shelf in a Walmart, all of which happened in open carry states where it is legal for people to visibly display weapons. But the thing is, white people don't get shot for openly carrying their weapons. Part of what we have to do as a country, part of what we have to do as a people is to admit that the threat assessment that's being made by these officers rests on a narrative that black people, and particularly black men, are dangerous criminals. That's the story underneath the fear. As a society and as individuals, we have to admit that this is the narrative that's giving these actions power. If we're going to address police violence and the use of deadly force against communities of color, we have to be honest about the root of why the officers are afraid. and admit our own complicity in that narrative of fear. All the stories about how he should not have been holding that thing that looked like a weapon in public are part of this narrative of fear. Sometimes that thing that he was holding is a toy gun, sometimes it's a cosplay sword, sometimes it's a lighter, it's a bottle, sometimes the man just has his hands in his pockets. Underneath all of it is the assumption that the man is a dangerous criminal until he somehow proves to you that he is not. Until he somehow proves to the officer that he is not. Unitarian Universalist minister and the president of Starr King School for the Ministry, Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt, writes about this assumption and how it affects her life in the essay Fears, published in the anthology Been in the Storm So Long. She writes, "Most married women fret about a tardy husband. Young black women like myself worry more. For most people in New York, the urban boogeyman is a young black man in sneakers. But we live in Central Harlem, where every young man is black and wears sneakers. So we learn to look into the eyes of young males and discern the difference between youthful bravado and the true dangers of the streets. No, I have other fears. I fear white men in police uniforms, white teenagers driving by, thin, panicky, middle-aged white men on the subway. Most of all, I fear that their path and my husband's will cross one night as he makes his way home. I fear that some white person will look at him and see only his or her nightmare, another black man in sneakers. But he's also a writer, an amateur cyclist, a lousy basketball player, his parents' son, my life's companion. When I peek out the window, the visions in my head are those of blind white panic at my husband's black presence. Once upon a time, I was vaguely ashamed of my paranoia about his safety in the world outside our home. After all, he's a grown man, but he's a grown black man on the streets alone. I am reminded over and over how dangerous white people can be, how their fears are still a hazard to our health. When white people are ruled by their fears of everything black, then every black man is a rapist, even a murderer. What's going on? In contrast, white people are not assumed to be dangerous criminals. They can fight for their right to bear arms by walking in groups, boldly brandishing weapons in public without a problem, even get press attention for it. White mothers do not sit down with their white sons to tell them never to play fight in public, to never run in public, to never carry anything that looks like a weapon in public, to move their hands slowly and explain every movement they make if and when they are pulled over. In fact, white people who actually commit crimes are often given more leniency than black people who have not committed a crime. White people are assumed innocent, and white lives are assumed worthy of saving, even when they have done something wrong. There's a new hashtag on Twitter called Criming While White, which documents instance after instance of how white people were coddled, helped, and released by the police when they were caught committing crimes. People who are posting with this hashtag are from all over the country. They don't know one another, and they're just remembering what happened to them that one time they stole a car or dealt drugs or got in an accident that was their fault. This is a very different experience from black people who have been arrested, beaten, choked, and shot when they have not committed a crime. When white people are caught doing something illegal, the narrative, the overarching narrative in the media is about helping them. It's about getting them into treatment or therapy. It's about mental illness. It's about healing. It's a narrative that's about their inherent worth and dignity, despite them having made mistakes. As Unitarian Universalists, this is certainly something that we support. But we have to contrast that when black people have made the same or even less mistakes, the narrative becomes one about thugs and what they should not have done if they didn't want that thing to happen to them, or how whatever did happen to them was their own fault, how they had it coming. We're not supposed to honor them or grieve them. We're no longer allowed to claim that their lives mattered and that they should not have been killed because they did something wrong. If a person is black, then they need to have been a perfect victim, a quote-unquote good kid, in order for people to say that their lives mattered. If a person is white, it is assumed that their lives mattered, even if they weren't perfect. It's not the same treatment. It's not proportional, and it is about race. That's why the meme that's coming out of this national dialogue is Black Lives Matter. No matter what they've done, perfect, imperfect, they matter. Because we're working to recognize the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, every single human being. So currently, the law is designed to support the use of deadly force by police officers if they reasonably believe that that use is necessary. This so-called objective reasonableness is the measure by which a court decides whether or not a police homicide is legal. What this has meant in real life is that American courts almost universally take the subjective assessment of the police officer at the moment of their decision to use deadly force as the measure of whether or not that decision itself was correct. If the officer's decision itself is the measure of objective reasonableness, how then would a court ever find an officer to be incorrect about the decision that they made? When the officer is white and the person the officer killed is black, the racist narrative of the dangerous black man is at play. To pretend that this powerful narrative does not exist gives it more power. To pretend that it wasn't involved in a snap judgment made by a white officer faced with a black man who has something, anything, in his hands, is to ignore how racism undergirds our country. We are not post-racial. We are still in it. We like to tell ourselves stories about how the 60s solved it all and civil rights happened and we're all good, but that's not true. We still have a long ways to go. This is our nation's original wound. And as people of conscience, we know that fear is not a reason to kill another human being. But that is exactly what the current system allows. The narrative of the scary, dangerous black man pulses like a snake in white consciousness. Because of the broader narratives in our society, this bigger context, this bigger picture in which we are all immersed, white people are trained to think of black men as criminals and as less than inherently worthy and dignified. Thousands of people are in the streets chanting, "I can't breathe," and the whole damn system is guilty. Because it is. Watching Eric Garner be killed on video might drop you to your knees. It should take your breath away and make you weep. But this grief, this rage, is not only about Eric Garner or Michael Brown or 12-year-old Tamir Rice. May their names stay on our lips. The problem that we're facing is bigger than that. It's systemic racism. This happens all the time, and it is codified in law and in practice. So what does that mean for us? For people of conscience? In their song, Ella's song, the all-female black a cappella group Sweet Honey in the Rock sings, "We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers, sons,